Godsworn is a classic mythological RTS being developed by two developers at Thunder Oak Interactive. Wait, hang on. Wasn't the last game we looked at, Global Conflagration, also just two developers? Global Conflagration is a real-time strategy game being developed by two developers. These two-man crews are gods themselves. Producing respectable quality RTS games with skeleton crews is a nice trend that we are following here. However, we are going to get you ready for multiplayer to give you an advantage on the battlefield, as you'll be equipped with everything you need to know to get a head start so you can jump straight in. This is a beginner's guide. Part 1, we'll go over the two Baltic heroes, economy, and much more. What is Godsworn? In a very high-level summary, Godsworn is an RTS with base and defense building, resource gathering and expansion, army and mythic creature training, gods and divine abilities, all while coupled with glorious strategic battles and tactics on beautiful terrains. Godsworn will offer a single-player or co-op campaign, really nice touch to see in an RTS, skirmish and multiplayer. So basically, everything you'd expect from RTS will ultimately be included. Keep in mind that this game is still being developed. The demo will be available on and off until early access, but much more is planned, with a total of 6 or more heroes, meaning 6 different teams you can select and play in the end. Now, Under the Forest, Godsworn has a battle and building feeling of Warcraft 3, with the exception of building freaking awesome walls and towers that you can place your units on. But Godsworn has a streamlined Age of Empires economic type system. The economic system has been developed to help bridge skill gaps because it's way less micro-intensive. It's easy to manage and understand. This allows for more time to focus on expanding, scouting, map control, using hero abilities, and really zoning and honing in on important engagements. And that's where the Warcraft 3 feeling comes in hard. The look and feel of the units and battles are definitely of resemblance. But the more annoying Warcraft 3 tendencies have been made redundant, which I really like. Things like having no mana for individual units as such. Healers will just heal and you don't have to micro a subset of unit elements, while they've also included toggle buttons for many of the different spells, just like Warcraft 3. All this allowing skill gap between casual to medium players to tighten, as many of the cumbersome elements have been stripped back, smoothed out, and thanks to these thoughtful mechanics, the game allows for a more unified, enjoyable experience for all players. This is the ultimate casual chiller RTS, but at the same time, offering an insane skill gap for advanced players looking to get into the deep and dirty details of the mechanics. Another Warcraft-ish aspect is you'll find creeps around the map that reward you with gold if they're guarding ore deposits, or the creeps might be in possession of one of your followers, which needs to be freed, only to be enslaved, work for you. Killing creeps will also give some experience to your god, which will call heroes from now on. Unlike Warcraft 3, an excellent choice was made to give each team a single hero, and the implementation of the abilities is another really nice touch that simplifies while enhancing the experience and enjoyment. In some cases, they've pulled off what I've always wanted, a command and conquer type ability in a Warcraft setting. Call in airstrikes, saw beams of destruction that look incredible. Now from the heavens, the lore and timing of this game is mythical. The world and story, while mostly inspired by Northern Crusade and Baltic mythologies, still remain an original world and timeline. Mixing history and myth, some liberties are obviously taken to make a coherent world and story. There might be references though to stories and myths or historical battles or places, but all through the dev's own interpretations. Note that the inspiration for the campaign is largely taken from the Latvian Danish folk poems and the Livonian chronicles, so you can really get in and deep dive into a rich realm that has a lot of basis in our own. Using the above lore, the story will be told about two factions, Baltic and the Order. Each faction will have a subset of gods you can select and play in multiplayer, or play through as one of the two factions in the campaign mode. We're going to go over starting your very first multiplayer game. We're going to do this quite quickly, but there is some really interesting things you should know just before you get started. So obviously you download and install the demo or early access via Steam. Once you get into the main menu, you click the custom game, then create game. If you want to verse people, you can select public, but if you're after a private verse some AIs, then you would hit the private button and hit create. Here we can select our god, color, team, just like the normal RTS sort of schemes. You can select an AI from easy to insane. Note that the easy isn't super chilled, but it's really not that hard. But in your first game, you may find it a bit difficult because it will send units your way quite quickly. On the right hand side, you have the victory conditions. Normally Shrine and Hero is the one selected by default, and this just means you got to destroy both the hero and Shrine to win. The other one is just destroying the Shrine to give the victory condition. It's good to have Shrine and Hero to make the possible ending of a game pretty crazy if you're both down to a hero. The population cap can be made smaller or bigger depending on what you're after. The current maximum is 140 units, which includes worshippers. There is a cheat box here, but we'll just ignore that for now. Under the cheats, you can select your map. Now, there probably will be limited maps until early release, but a selection nonetheless. You should be able to do anything from a 1 vs 1 all the way up to a 4 vs 4, depending on where we're up to in terms of early release and demos. Under maps, there's this challenge mode, which is awesome. You'll be able to do challenge mode with just AI or with a teammate. The challenge mode is 10 rounds of waves of enemy that you have to defend against in order to win. Once you're all set up, you jump in and then you build your base up with your teammates and you'll stop the attacks coming in. But yeah, basically it's just a really cool challenge mode. Now the really neat thing is under your gold in the middle. We'll note the faction and the difficulty, letting you know how easy this hero is to play. And clicking the magnifying glass on the right there opens up a super helpful description menu that will describe all the buildings, abilities, and units to help you quickly get up to speed. You can click the arrow to change the team as well. Simply click the magnifying glass again to exit the menu. Very neat addition there. Once you're happy with everything, you can hit start. Loading into a game, you start off with a few worshippers and your hero and the shrine. We'll start off with the shrine. The shrine is your town hall command center, but it can attack. It also does a good healing area around. Basically, you'll heal any unit within the cobblestoned area. Most importantly, your worshippers are summoned from your shrine, but we'll get into that in more detail soon. Another thing to note about your shrine, in order to advance units and technology, you will have to purchase an upgrade called idols, and this will give you access to the blessings of the minor gods, which are 6 idols that appear around your shrine. The addition of the idols is symbolic and allows you to know that your enemy has purchased the upgrade as well if you see their shrine. But it also helps you in case you've forgotten. The main reason to purchase the idol upgrade is to gain access to your final tier of units and buildings. The timing of this purchase will be very critical to your strategy. Now, if you are interested, the Baltic factions, for an example, when they purchase the idols, they do actually have the minor gods and they are based off real gods. So say, for example, Baltic, they'll have Janus, Jundar, Drumis, just to name a few. But a cool little feature there. Okay, now on to the economy system, which was implemented superbly in this game. We'll start by breaking down the UI at the top of the screen in the right hand corner and explain what each symbol represents and what it's used for. Then we'll go into more details on each. Starting from left to right, at a high level, you have worshippers. These are your workers. Next to that is faith, used to train mythical units, use gold powers, and purchase upgrades. The next one is wealth, which is the coin, used for training strong human units and for upgrades. Next is wood, used for buildings and units. Food, used for training units. And lastly, there's housing, which increases your population limit for both worshippers and military units. Now, looking closer at worshippers. You're not able to build worshippers. They're summoned, or you could say spawned from your shrine, but a small number of worshippers can be freed by killing certain creeps around the map. You have no upkeep cost for worshippers as such. The hidden cost is time. It takes time to build worshippers, and they are critical to everything in this game, so it's important to keep them guarded, alive, and away from battle. The time to summon worshippers increase as your population grows. Worshippers can't attack either, so they just build, repair, gather, and worship. They can be used in combination with hero abilities, like you can turn them into wolves, or possibly sacrifice them with heroes yet to be announced, but those are more advanced things to discuss another time. Looking at worshippers resource icon, there are 3 numbers. It's important to understand. The first number represents how many are free. And generally, you'll find these worshippers at your shrine. Basically, if they're at their shrine praying, they account to that first number. The next number represents how many worshippers you currently have in total. So all the worshippers at your shrine and that are assigned to resources and buildings. The last number lets you know how many worshippers can be built in total. So remember, the total number of worship in a multiplayer can be changed when setting up the game. So that's why this number changes, and that's why it's visible here. Technically, you can actually have more worshippers than the limit suggests, as freeing worshippers still work even once you've reached the maximum limit. But technically, you can only ever spawn the amount of worshippers as depicted in the amount at the top there. Looking closer at the spawn time factor for worshippers. The amount of free, unused housing is what actually dictates the spawn rate for worshippers. So say if you have a lot of military units and or worshippers, the spawn time will be very slow or long. If you have next to no units, lots of housing space, and not many worshippers, then the spawn time will be much faster, a lot less time. It's like this to help the underdog or to give a way to come back. Let's say after a brutal battle, you may be able to get ahead by being able to spawn more workers faster and get back into the game earlier. Worshippers also construct all your human buildings. So let's take a look at resources and building aspect. Resource buildings will correspond to the following resource. Building the gatherer's hut, hunter's lodge, and or farmstead will generate food. Food is used to train units. The forestry will gather wood for the constructions of buildings and training units. Building a jeweler will mine copper, silver, and gold and generate wealth. There are other means to generate wealth alongside jewelers, which we'll cover later. However, the first thing you'll notice when you go to place down resource building is a circle appears around while you're in the placement stage. Simply put, the rule is you can only have one resource building per resource site or area. As an example, I want to build a gatherer's hut. The first rule is gatherer's hut has to be built close to the berries. More precisely, the berries must be within that circle. The second rule is you can't build a second gatherer's hut on the same patch of berries. So only one resource building per resource site or area. In order to build that second gatherer's hut, I'll have to find another berry site and place it there. Now the same rule goes for your forestry building. It has a much bigger radius, but the same rule applies. But the placement is not as strict as the gatherer's hut. Again, the same rule applies for the hunter's lodge and the jeweler, only one building per resource spot. However, hunter's lodge has to be built near a group of deer, which will generate more food than berries. Meanwhile, a jeweler will be built next to ore deposits. There are copper, silver, and gold deposits, and they also have different amounts. Copper provides 3 wealth, silver 4, and gold 5, but usually silver and gold will be found in more treacherous places. The resource placement rule does not apply to farmsteads. Farmsteads are unlocked by upgrading your shrine and can be placed like normal buildings. They have no resource dependency and generate food and can be built again anywhere. Lastly, housing. Housing increases your population limit for both worshippers and military units. Worshippers will be counted towards your housing space, shown here. So the housing counts worshippers and units all the same. In this example, you can only have 44 worshippers in total, which means you can build 96 units for battle. That's if all 44 worshippers have been spawned. What this means is you can actually delete some workers to allow for more space to build units. So technically, you could build 144 units and have no worshippers at all. In situations like this, your shrine will pause and not build any more worshippers until the population cap has been decreased. Let's drill a bit deeper to the triggers for the resource numbers that increase and decrease. I really like how this works. Unassigning a worshipper from a resource building will immediately reflect a decrease as seen here on your resource display. And then by assigning a worshipper, they need to touch the building or a quick animation performed for that number to increase again. A really nice simple system here. That's all the basic management of resources required. In many ways, your resources are generated rather than gathered, as it's a fixed rate per worshipper assigned to that resource site, and the resources never run out, they are permanent. So that kind of covers your worshippers and resource collection. Now, onto how to assign workers. Assigning workers to collect resources is really nice and simple. Above your resource building, you'll see a head symbol. You left click to assign a worker and right click the mouse button to unassign. Assigned workers are displayed as green, blue means workers are on their way, and empty is no worker assigned. Assigning more worshippers to resource building will increase the amount generated. Upon completion of a resource building being constructed, one worker will always be assigned automatically, and in many cases you'll have to manually assign a second or third as required. But just note, in some cases, the workers will assign themselves as needed. The other way to assign workers is to select the resource building and click the repair button. This will also assign a worker to that building to gather resources. Alternatively, you can select the worker and then click on the resource building to assign them manually. Now, all resource buildings can get upgrades to increase either the slot or how much resources they generate. The upgrades can be purchased from any one of the respective resource buildings and only need to be purchased once, and it impacts all of that type of building. Okay, quick look at controlling worshippers and speed building. You can select and assign worshippers to do anything you need at any time. They're just like peons from Warcraft 3, but you need to do a lot less fussing in some cases. You can also assign multiple workers to construct a building. When you construct a building, the hammer icon represents how many workers are called to construct that building. If you press the hammer button, another worshipper, if available, will be called to construct that building. If you don't have any available, the worker number will just remain the same. You can also click and drag and select workers, say from the shrine, and then click on the building and they will speed build. So yeah, you can have basically all your worshippers building one building and speed build like crazy. Let's take a close look at faith and how it's generated. Faith is generated from worshippers and a little bit always from your hero. The more worshippers at your shrine, the more faith you generate. You can select workers and assign them to the shrine at any time to increase faith generation. Faith is critical and can be challenging to balance between all your worshippers' tasks. Faith is heavily required and needed mid to late game as you need to get all the good upgrades, powerful units, and cast lots of abilities. Another important aspect of your shrine and faith is that when your worshippers are at the shrine praying, they're basically considered idle. And when you go to create a building or need them to mine other resources, the idle workers from the shrine will be assigned to those tasks. So just to clarify, workers at the shrine are basically considered idle. The other important thing to note is your workers will always either have to be at the shrine or mining resources, building. They basically can't stand still doing nothing. So for instance, if you grab all these workers and move them over here, they'll walk to that location and then they'll immediately return to the shrine. So this is one of the aspects of actually managing your worshippers, is sometimes it can be a little bit funny because they can't sit idle. So say if you want them to build multiple buildings, you have to keep a bit of a closer eye on them just in case they do try walk back to the shrine. Just something to be mindful of. Now on to heroes. It's important before we start that I explain how the abilities are broken down into categories. The abilities are broken down into 4 categories, but we'll just say 3 because 2 are pretty much similar. So we'll start off with global active. You'll see these abilities appear at the top of the screen here. Nice and easy to use, will be abilities that need to be manually activated each time you use them, and in most cases, do not need your hero to use it all. An example of global active is Meness' sleep ability. You can cast sleep anywhere on the map without Meness needing to be close by, but keep in mind majority of global actives won't work over fog of war, so you'll need to have the map vision to use most global active abilities. The next 2, which we'll just combine, which is global and hero passive abilities. They're very similar to each other, so we'll stick them together. These abilities are selected and forgotten. They run in the background, usually affecting your hero, resources, and units. An example of this is Saule's Radiance. Once you select it, you don't have to do anything else. Units will receive the benefits when near Saule, and that's an example of a hero passive ability. A global passive is the same, but doesn't have anything to do with your hero as such, but might still benefit your hero. So passive meaning you don't have to do anything. Click and forget, but it's important to understand how the benefit and passive ability works. Hero active abilities. These are abilities that you trigger directly from your heroes, so pretty straightforward and common, just like Warcraft 3 hero ability. Also note that you will have 10 abilities for each hero, which you gain access to as your hero levels up. You gain experience by killing enemy units and creeps. Let's look at Saule and Meness abilities, but a little history first. Meness and Saule are both from the Baltic faction. Meness was married to Saule, the sun goddess, but they have grown apart since. Now they watch the opposite sides of day. Starting off with Saule. On level 1, we have the Soul Array, which is a hero ability. So you'll have to select Saule, select Soul Array, or hit the hotkey button, which I believe is Q. And then you can select an enemy, which will deal damage, or you can select a friendly unit or your own unit to do a significant heal. So this ability will do damage to enemies or heal your units. The next one is Judge of Light, which is a global passive ability. A click and forget. Judge of Light will increase the health regeneration rate of all units. So it's an awesome early game health regen option. Tear of Amber is a really awesome fun ability. The story goes the soul cries out, her tear falls down from the sky in the form of an amber. When the tear hits the ground, it grows into a magical defense tower. The amber bursts out radiant energy, dealing damage around itself whenever an enemy is nearby. It does it in a kind of cool rhythmical fashion. Tear of Amber counts as a structure and is permanent until destroyed. A nice ability to drop on enemies or worshippers as they gather resources. Next we have the level 2 or level 3, Sunbridge Passage, which is a global active that has a really cool golden horse looking thing that will race across the map, revealing everything in its path. Cool thing about this ability, you can use it anywhere and choose the direction and path you wish to reveal. A great ability to keep track of what your enemy is doing. Level 4 abilities. The level 4 abilities are both global actives for Saule and are resource related. We have the Golden Apple, which will construct these beautiful looking apple trees that can heal and generate gold if you assign a worker to these resource buildings. You can build as many of these golden apple trees as you want, and you can pretty much build them anywhere. Apple trees kind of give Saule a turtling ability, and also could pose strong comebacks if expansions are lost, as you can rely on these apple trees to generate gold. The next resource ability is the Serpent of the Heart, which will add an additional worshipper to any resource building without the worshipper. Building and adding a Serpent of the Heart acts just like an additional worker slot. You can add this only once to each resource building. It doesn't increase your worshipper count either. A very powerful ability, again that will help turtle tactics or a powerful comeback. The level 5, Flooding Light is a global active, so you can use this anywhere on the map without Saule. It's a high level healing ability that has a long cooldown, but will heal your units to almost full health basically. Next level 4 is Radiance, which is a passive hero ability, so it's a click and forget. And you'll note, once you click and activate this ability from your hero tree, there'll be a ring around Saule after grabbing this ability. Any of your units or friendly units in this ring will receive extra health regen, while if enemies are in the circle, they will be dealt burn damage. Now the epic level 7 abilities, starting with the Golden Embrace, is a hero ability that grants additional army, magic resistance, and increased health regen. You trigger this ability from Saule and you'll see this epic golden sphere appear around all the units in the sphere. This signifies that they're gaining this insane boost. Last and probably a lot of our most favorite ability is the Solar Fury. It's almost like a super weapon from Command & Conquer Generals. It's so sweet. It's a global active which deals a devastating, glorious beam of destruction that will also hurt your units, so definitely don't use this on your own army, but definitely target the enemy's base or army to get the best impact and enjoy the light show. Okay, now on to my favorite, Meness. Let's look at the level 1 abilities. First we have Crescent, which is a hero ability. Meness slices the enemy with a foul crescent, stealing part of its health. If the enemy dies directly from the use of Crescent, then a secondary attack triggers, dealing damage around the fallen enemy. You can see that here with that dark shadow surrounding the wolf as it dies. So this is a good ability to use and to pick up units that are low on health, just to get in that extra damage. Next we have Sleep, a very simple but excellent globally active ability. It's pretty straightforward. We'll just put a group of units to sleep within this surrounding circle area, and you can use it anywhere on the map. Meness doesn't need to be near for this to work. Level 2 abilities, we have Wane, which is a global active. This is an insanely strong ability that lets you teleport a group of units back to your shrine from any location on the map. Just make sure your units are close to Meness, but great for launching attacks and then being able to quickly retreat to defend your own base. Next is a global active, which is Ritual of the Wolf. Allows you to turn any of your own human units into a wolf. So you won't be able to turn any mythical units to a wolf, but just humans. Wolves are fast and do decent damage, so not a bad trade if you have heaps of unused worshippers, for example. There is no cooldown either, so as long as you have faith, you can turn all of your worshippers into wolves. Pretty sweet defense idea. The only drawback is turning worshippers into wolves will add population counters, and obviously you'll have to spawn your worshippers again. Wolves don't disappear either. They're with you until they die, just like real dogs. But again, you can't turn non-human units into wolves. So say Perkis, the dragon unit, you can't change him. Finally, this ability also lets you build wolves from your witch cabin. Wolves are cheap, fast, and great for scouting. A handy tactic to use. Level 4 ability, we have Blade Dash, which is a hero ability, which is a cold piercing type attack that steals life. So Meness gains some health from this attack. Use this attack wisely as it has a long cooldown, but it's also great for ambush through trees and other objects with the dashing animation. Next we have Warrior Patron, which is a global passive, and this will give you faith every time you kill an enemy. The greater the XP, the more faith is gained when your unit kills them. This also boosts Meness' first strike attack, giving an additional 4 blades. So those blades that sit above Meness can now go up to 6, but getting 6 means Meness hasn't attacked for a while. So he'll fire 6 knives first off, then after that it's just 2. It basically works as a first strike. You get 6 blades instead of 2. Horned Stride is a hero ability that will allow Meness and surrounding units to dash across the space. A very nice ambush ability that can really catch an enemy off guard. Next is Shadow, which will spawn 4 Shadow soldiers that can attack but will disappear after a bit of time. Now onto the epics. Darkness Knight is a hero ability. It's very pesky, and this is what it looks like when you're versing it. You can't see very much and it's very distracting. Meanwhile, slowing your units and hitting them with cold damage. This is what it looks like when you cast the ability on Meness' side. Looks good, but against it, I fear the darkness. And Meness' final insane attack is the Blood Moon. This is a deadly ultimate. Blood Moon powers up all your units, increasing strength power. Meanwhile, if they kill an enemy during Blood Moon, they get infuriated, and that will give the unit back a lot of health. Meness will also get a shadow for every unit killed during Blood Moon. So super deadly, basically makes your whole army stronger, and if you kill units, you gain health, so watch out for this one. This one snowballs very quickly and packs a real devastating punch. Definitely a game finishing move. And that's all we're going to cover in this beginner tutorial. Thank you so much for checking this out. If you've watched till here, legendary, please click like and subscribe. It really does help. Peace out.